We shall move to questions without notice. Are there any questions? And I give the call to the Honourable the Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister. Can the Prime Minister explain why 63,000 more Australian families are on hardship assistance arrangements for their power bills today than on the day Labor took office 3 years ago?
The call to the Prime Minister.
Thanks very much, Mr Speaker. One of the things that my government has done, of course, is introduce energy bill relief. 3 lots of energy bill relief, all of which were opposed by those opposite. The latest element of energy bill relief began on July 1 and will extend until December 31. So we are engaging, as we have, in the immediate support for people and for small business in energy bill relief. The second thing that we have done as a government, I'm asked about last term, was to intervene in the gas and coal market to put a cap on prices. That was a very significant intervention. And it's true that it wasn't something that we took to the 2022 election, but it was something that we did in partnership with a responsible Liberal government led by Dominic Perrottet in New South Wales. And what that was about was making sure that the global spike in energy, the biggest global spike in energy prices and pressure that we had seen since the 1970s, was dealt with in a responsible way. So we did that in New South Wales and in Queensland in particular. And the third thing that we are doing is to do things which yesterday, in the question from the member for Monash, her first question, I congratulate her on her election to the House of Representatives and on giving her first speech in this place. In her first question, she asked, in part, not her fault, in part was given a question that spoke about permanent reductions in people's energy bills. And that is precisely what batteries storing energy from solar panels on roofs does.
Will pause. The Leader of the Opposition on point of order.
Point of relevance, Mr Speaker. The question was, why are more families struggling? In outlining these actions, the Prime Minister seems to be confirming that he caused this, but not explaining why families are struggling.
Order. The Prime Minister is answering the question. Here's the call.
Thanks, Mr Speaker. Notwithstanding the verbling in that point of order, Mr Speaker, because the batteries program that began on July 1 has already been taken up by 18,000 households. And what that will do, of course, isn't just benefit those households, but because it takes pressure off the grid, it benefits all households. And on May the 3rd, of course, there was an alternative to the government's plan, because the alternative was the nuclear plan.
Order.
The former leader went nowhere near any of the sites. I wonder if
policies.
the current leader takes up the opportunity to visit those nuclear reactor sites.
The Prime Minister's time has concluded. The House comes to order. We'll hear from the member for Sturt.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister. How will the Albanese Labor government's commitment to cut student debt benefit Australian university and vet students?
Give the call to the Prime Minister.
I thank the member for Sturt for her question, and I congratulate her on her election to this House and a fantastic first speech in this House. And of course, I had met the member for Sturt before we travelled to in November to Adelaide, to the electorate of Sturt, where we launched this very policy. And when we launched it, we said that it would make a difference to around 3 million Australians to the tune of $5,500 each, putting dollars back into the pockets of Australians, 3 million of them. But we didn't just do that to deal with the question of intergenerational equity and making the system fairer. Our changes also raised the repayment threshold and lowered the rate of repayments, indexing both of them to keep them fair in the future. And this legislation passed the parliament, both houses, earlier today. It means someone earning $70,000 in the member for Sturt's electorate will save $1,300 a year in repayments, a structural and lasting boost in take-home pay. Now, part of our vision for a fairer future for younger Australians are also changes to mortgage rules, so banks don't automatically penalise someone with a student debt when they want to borrow money to buy a house. So the combination of the 20% cut in debt, a boost to take-home pay through a fairer repayment system, fairer mortgage rules, when taken together, what they all aim at is helping young Australians to build the future that they want, whether it's buying a home or starting a family or growing their career. Labor is the party of education and Labor is the party of aspiration. And today we voted for both.
Order.
Those opposite went to the election
on my left will cease
saying
interjecting.
that they were opposed to the cut in student debt and to the fairer repayments and to these measures that we put before the parliament after the election. They said it was unfair. They said it was not an equity position to take forward. They said that we're advantaging university students even though it applies to TAFE as well. Now, today in the Senate, and the member helpfully suggests that it's vote buying. What it's doing is providing cost of living relief, member for Gippsland, something that they opposed, but in the Senate today they all abstained. None of them could even walk into the chamber to vote for this change.
Time has concluded. The House comes to order. We'll hear from the Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Climate Change and Energy. Minister, what is the average monthly household power bill today, and what was it when Labor took office 3 years ago?
Order. Give the call to the Minister for Climate Change and Energy.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I thank the honourable Leader of the Opposition for the question. It varies from state to state. In New South Wales, the average wholesale price today is $127.72. The average at election was $320.48. In Queensland, the average today is $107.39. The average at Queensland was average on election day was $347.28. In South Australia, the average today is $185.27. The average on election day was $312.30. I was asked a question, Mr Speaker.
Order. Members on my right, the member for Aston will cease interjecting. The member for Herbert is not helping. He won't be here to hear anything else if he keeps that up. The Leader of the Opposition is going to be heard in silence when she raises her point of order.
A point of order on relevance, Mr Speaker. Despite the rapid-fire delivery from the minister, it is clear that he is giving wholesale prices, not household prices. The question was about retail prices, and he does know the difference.
Order. Order. Just before we go too far down this road, just reminding the Leader of the Opposition to assist me and to assist the House. It's not an opportunity to add extra things, just to get up and state the point of the order was obviously about relevance that she took. The minister was asked about average household power bill prices. He is giving information to the House. There was too much noise, and it will greatly assist the House so that I can concentrate on the minister's answer. And I'll just, now he's less than a minute in, I'll just ask him to be directly relevant to the question he was asked about and, where possible, provide the information to the House.
Certainly, Mr Speaker. Thank you. And obviously, The honourable member asked me about power prices, and I'm providing the Leader of the Opposition.
Order.
And the Leader of the Opposition asked specifically about prices today compared to election day, and I'm providing that. In Victoria, the average wholesale price today is $126.83.
Order.
On election day, it was $233.
Order. The Leader of the Nationals.
Now, the Leader of the Opposition asks about power prices, and I say
no. The Minister will pause. The Leader of the Nationals has had a very good go this week. I'm going to ask him to cease interjecting. It's his voice I hear more than anyone else's. Order. Just, Minister, return to the question. Order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now, perhaps I could say, Mr. Speaker, we on this side of the House agree that Australians have looked and will continue to look to the government to do more to assist on household energy bills. The work is far from done. We've delivered 3 rounds of energy bill relief, but we recognise that around the world, including in Australia, power prices have been higher than anyone would like. Of course we do, and that's why we've taken such action. And that's why, for example, after the election I announced a very significant change to the default market offer, a review to effectively change the way the default market offer works to put Australian households at the centre, to prioritise Australian households, to stop sneaky price hikes by retailers so there can be only one price rise a year, to prevent customers from being charged more than the standing offer price if their initial low-cost offer changes. For example, Mr. Speaker, that's the sort of thing we did last term and what we'll continue to do this term. Now, it's true that the Australian people knew what we took to the 2022 election. They knew what we did in the last term. They knew the challenges we faced with global headlines. They knew that, and they cast judgment on May the 3rd. The then Leader of the Opposition said of the last election, and I quote, "I'm very happy for the election to be a referendum on energy, on nuclear, on power prices, on lights going out, on who has a sustainable pathway for our country going forward." That's what the then Leader of the Opposition called for. He campaigned across the country, including several occasions in my own electorate. I campaigned in his electorate, to be fair, and, Mr. Speaker, I was satisfied with the result in both, Mr. Speaker. I was satisfied with the result in both because the Australian people had a choice. And in fact, Mr. Speaker, we accept that result. We accept it with humility, and I'd encourage those opposite to do the same.
Order. When the House comes to order, we shall hear from the member for Hughes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Education. How is the Albanese Labor government helping Australians with student debt, and what support has it received?
Call to the Minister for Education.
Thanks very much, Mr. Speaker, and can I thank my good friend, the member for Hughes, for his question. On the 3rd of May, Australians voted for tax cuts, they voted for free TAFE, they voted for urgent care clinics, they voted for the biggest investment in Medicare ever, and they voted for this. They voted to cut student debt by 20%. And today we delivered. Mr. Speaker, this will help 17,000 people in the electorate of Hughes, 22,000 people in the electorate of Barton, 18,000 people in the electorate of Lindsay, 23,000 people in the electorate of Cunningham, 19,000 people in Wright, 20,000 people in Greenway, 15,000 people in New England, 21,000 people in Tangney, 17,000 people in Page, 21,000 people in Fisher, and, Mr. Speaker, in the great electorate of Oxley, 24,000 people. All up, more than 3 million Australians. This will save millions of Australians thousands of dollars. The average HECS debt today is about $27,000. This will cut that debt by about $5,500. And a lot of those are young Australians. Young people don't always see something for them on the ballot paper when there's an election, but they did this year and they voted for it in their millions. Young people, often just out of TAFE, just out of uni, just out of home, just getting started, and this will take a weight off their back. Mr. Speaker, now that the legislation has passed, the Tax Office can get to work. They've now got the certainty that they need to make this a reality. And this is a big piece of work, about 50,000 lines of code that they've got to write, and this will take a bit of time. But now the bill has passed, this 20% cut is locked in and will be backdated to the 1st of June this year before indexation happened. And, Mr Speaker, we're doing that for a reason, to make sure that we honour the promise that we made to the Australian people in full, that we would cut their debt by 20%. And you'll get a text message when it's done. But after today, that 20% cut is guaranteed. And that's a great thing for millions of Australians.
Before I call the member for Clare, I'm pleased to inform the House that in the gallery today we are joined by a delegation from North Queensland, including Mr Robbie Katter MP, the state member for Traeger, the Mount Isa City Council Mayor, Councillor Peter Moncrieff, Townsville City Council Acting Mayor, Councillor Anne-Marie Graney, Cloncurry Shire Council Mayor, Councillor Gregg Campbell, and the workers from the powerhouse city of Mount Isa. Welcome to you all. Give the call to the honourable member for Clare.
To the Minister for Veterans Affairs. The Royal Commission into Defence and Veteran Suicide highlighted the tragic human cost of our country failing to properly care for our ADF personnel, veterans and their families. Veterans and families' wellbeing hubs are a step in setting things right. We have thousands of veterans in the Clare electorate, but there are no hubs in the central west of New South Wales. The Bathurst and Orange RSL sub-branches want to establish a hub in Bathurst and Orange with outreach hubs in smaller communities. Will you meet with our local veterans and consider this proposal?
Give a call to the Minister for Veterans Affairs and the Minister for Defence Personnel.
Thank you, Speaker, and I thank the member for his very important question and very much recognise the place it comes from as an experienced member dealing with veteran issues, as a former Minister for Veterans Affairs who very much was put himself on the line when making sure he was standing up for getting the services for veterans. As the member pointed out, the Royal Commission into Defence and Veteran Suicide went to and spoke about the importance of dealing with more holistic wellbeing and care for the veteran community. And certainly when we went to the 2022 election and made our commitment to rolling out 10 veterans and families hubs across the country, we made sure that we selected locations based on the highest concentrations of veterans and families around the country as the priority area to focus on in rolling out those hubs. And it means that we are now in the progress of already having open and rolling out some 17 veterans and families hubs. And I really like to emphasise the point that these are hubs to support services for veterans and families as well. In the final report of the Royal Commission, there were a number of recommendations that go to veteran and family wellbeing, and in particular recommendations going to the ongoing operation of the veterans and families hubs, and tying them into the work of one of the other recommendations, which was to establish a specialist wellbeing agency within the Department of Veterans Affairs. The government has already accepted that recommendation, and we've funded DVA to conduct the co-design work with the veteran community to ensure that there's proper consultation across the veteran community with what that wellbeing agency will look like and how it will interface with the veteran and family hub network across Australia to make sure that veterans, no matter where they're located, are able to access the supports they need to have improved wellbeing. In that end, I'm certainly very happy to meet with the member for Clare and indeed to come out and meet with the Bathurst and Orange RSL so that I can understand and we can make sure that we are delivering the sorts of wellbeing benefit services and supports that veterans in your area, just as we want for the entire country, that our veterans and families get the service and support they need and deserve, and look forward to coming out to your community to meet with your veteran community as well. Thank you.
The call to the honourable member for Banks.
My question is to the Treasurer. What preparations are being made for the Economic Reform Roundtable next month? How will the government's efforts help tackle the big challenges in our economy?
Call to the Treasurer.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I thank the outstanding new member for Banks for his question. I congratulate him on his victory and on his first speech as well. This week we got a really important reminder in the inflation numbers of the progress that Australians have made together over the course of the last 3 years or so. And what is especially heartening is at the same time as we've worked to get inflation down to around a third of what we inherited, It's meant that we've got real wages growing again, living standards growing again. We've kept unemployment low. We've delivered a couple of surpluses. We've got the Liberal debt down, and that is all important and meaningful progress, Mr Speaker. Now, no major advanced economy has achieved what Australia has: inflation in the low 2s, unemployment in the low 4s, 3 years of continuous economic growth. But we do know that there is more work to do, because the global environment is uncertain, because growth is not what we want it to be in our economy. We've got persistent structural issues in our economy, and we know that people are still under pressure, Mr Speaker. And that's why the primary focus of this government in the first parliamentary fortnight of the year of the new government has been to deliver the cost of living relief that we promised at the election, to roll that out. It's also why we've got a big economic agenda already when it comes to skills and energy, housing and competition policy and in other areas. But it's also, particularly these persistent structural issues in our economy, is why we will be convening the Economic Reform Roundtable next month here in Canberra. Now, this is all about building consensus around next steps and how we deal with these big economic challenges. And we've been very grateful for the engagement that we've already seen from right around the country. I thank and pay tribute to the ministers here for the work that they're doing, engaging with stakeholders in their own portfolios, Mr Speaker. There has been a lot of engagement already. And it will be a busy 3 days. And in the next day or so, I'll be releasing the agenda for those 3 days for the Economic Reform Roundtable. Now, I want to make it clear, Mr Speaker, that we do not expect there to be a unanimous view of everyone who comes to the roundtable. Of course not. It would be pointless if that was the case. And we don't expect to solve every single problem in our economy in 3 days. Some of these problems have been building for 3 decades, Mr Speaker. But we do expect the roundtable to help set some general directions, to pitch up specific ideas, and there'll be more work for the government to do after the roundtable and in advance of the next budget. But, Mr Speaker, we have made good progress together in our economy as Australians. We do have a big agenda we're rolling out. This government figures the best way to work out the next steps is to do that together, and that's what the Reform Roundtable is all about.
The call to the member for Wannon.
Thanks, Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Climate Change and Energy. Will the Minister confirm that the government will meet its renewable energy target of 82% by 2030?
Give the call to the Minister for Climate Change and Energy.
Well, thanks very much, Mr Speaker. I can absolutely confirm it is this government's intention to continue to work towards that target in 2030. Absolutely. And I'm pleased to tell the honourable member that we are making very good progress towards it. It is 2025, and we are working towards that 2030 target, and we're making good progress. In the last financial year, 4.4 gigawatts of new renewable energy was added to the grid. Added, not investment decisions, added, up and running. But the pipeline was 15.6 gigawatts, which is a massive amount of renewable energy. I know it upsets those opposite to hear those points. Just this week, there was $1 billion announced to be invested in Australia's renewable energy system by a very large international investor. This is good news, at least we think it is, on this side of the House. Just today, AGL announced a multi-$100 million investment in energy storage in our country, Mr Speaker, which is a good thing. All this leads to an addition to the renewable energy pipeline for our country. We think that's a good thing. They think it's a bad thing.
Has the minister concluded his answer? Well, the minister did address the question. He was very clear with his response within seconds of the direct question he was asked. I fail on earth to see how there could possibly be a question on relevance here when he specifically addressed the question. So I will not take frivolous points of order on relevance. I'm just giving the member fair warning that he was asked a question and he responded directly to it.
My point of order is on relevance, Speaker. And it's a serious it's a serious point of relevance, right? And I would like some reverence as I deal with that relevance.
Order, order. Just get to the point.
The question, Speaker, very clearly asks, will the government meet? It didn't talk about intentions. It talked about will the government meet.
Resume your seat. Resume your seat. Look, we're going down a bad path here. If people don't like the answer to the question, and we're getting into semantics of exactly, but the minister was being directly relevant within seconds of answering your question. Now, you mightn't have liked it, but you know we've got to be real here. So I'm asking everyone to get with the program and just Minister in continuation.
Thank you, sir. And in addition to that big battery that has just been announced today, I can confirm what the Prime Minister told the House just a few moments ago. In the last 4 weeks, 18,336 Australian households have added a battery to their household under the Albanese's cheaper home batteries policy. Now, the honourable gentleman opposite asked me, will we meet our targets? And I believe we will, Mr Speaker. But I also believe we know what that target is and believe in it. It takes some temerity from those opposite to ask this side of the House about meeting our targets when they can't agree on whether they have a target, Mr Speaker. The House, just before question time, voted to bring on the member for New England's bill for a vote next sitting week. You know who voted to bring on the bill? This side of the House, plus the member for New England. Everybody else over there voted against the House getting the chance to vote on their bill, even the seconder of the bill, the bromance, the member for Riverina. So we know what our targets are. We know how to get there. We intend to get there. They don't even know what their target is. I apologise for the connection with the member for New England.
The standing orders are going to be followed. I'm going to call the member for Riverina on a point of order regarding this question's finished. It's not about relevance. It'll have to be, I'd ask a sister House with what his point of order is.
Well, it's for the state of accuracy. And I didn't second the bill. The member for Flynn did,
order.
So get your facts right, just for once.
Resume your seat. Order. 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 When the House comes to order, we will now hear from the member for Braddon.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Health. How is the Albanese Labor government delivering life-saving cancer screening programs, and why is it important that Australians continue to receive cheaper medicines to help with their treatment?
I call to the Minister for Health and Ageing, the Minister for Disability and the NDIS.
Thanks, Speaker, and thanks to the member for Braddon. Yesterday I did talk about how Australia's PBS gives us all access to the world's best medicines at affordable prices, medicines that have helped drive up survival rates for diseases like cancer dramatically in recent years, and medicines we're determined to make even cheaper. But great medicines, Mr Speaker, are only effective with good and timely diagnosis, and this is why survival rates for lung cancer have not improved as much as other cancers. Although it's only the 5th most common cancer in Australia, it is by far the biggest cancer killer, largely because it's picked up too late, when symptoms first emerge, but treatments like surgery and medicines are basically ineffective. That's why in 2023 the Treasurer announced $260 million in that budget to introduce one of the world's first lung cancer screening programs, the first new program for cancer in 20 years, to pick up more cancers early when they're able to be treated. From the beginning of this month, Australians aged 50 to 70 with a significant history of smoking can access a lung scan fully bulk billed. Already, thousands of Australians have already lined up for their free scan, and already lives are being saved. Patrick, who's 65 years of age from Melbourne, for example, just happened to get referred after he had a consultation about sleep apnoea, and his scan found a stage 1 lung tumour the size of a grape instead of the size of a grapefruit. He's already had surgery and his prospects are excellent. A thoracic radiologist, Catherine, told me earlier this week at a lung cancer screening event that she'd picked up in the first 2 days of the program a stage 2 lung tumour that within as little as 3 months would have grown to a stage 4 tumour and almost certainly have killed that patient. Mr Speaker, we're taking this program to rural and remote areas like the member for Braddon's electorate as well, areas that don't have a radiology clinic in their town, like many parts of communities that members opposite and on this side represent. Mobile screening trucks that have been built right here in Australia, run by Heart of Australia, are going to be rolling out to rural and remote communities right around Australia to ensure that every Australian, no matter where they live, has this new chance of survival. This world-leading program, Mr Speaker, which is being watched right around the world, is going to save hundreds and hundreds of Australian lives every single year, because we're utterly determined to make sure that no one is left behind as we go about the work of strengthening Medicare.
Call to the member for Hinkler.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Climate Change and Energy. Christine from North Bundaberg is a resident in my electorate of Hinkler. Christine is 74 years old and due to rising electricity prices and rents has been forced to return to work at a local supermarket just to get by. Will the Minister explain why Christine's electricity bill has not been reduced by $275 as promised 97 times?
Give the call to the Minister for Climate Change and Energy.
Well, thanks very much, Mr Speaker, for the question, and thanks to the honourable member for what I think is his first question in the House. But what the honourable member, I think, would be well advised to let Christine know is why his party voted 3 times against energy bill relief for Christine. I think that would be a useful thing for the honourable gentleman to communicate to Christine. We say to Christine, we know that her energy bill is high. That's why we worked so hard to bring it down. That's why we worked so hard on 3 rounds of energy bill relief. That's why we worked so hard on energy market reform, so that Christine and everyone like her gets a fairer go in the energy system. That's why we're reforming the default market offer. These are all policies that we worked on in the first term of the Albanese government.
The Minister will pause. There is far too much noise. The member for Forest, you've been interjecting non-stop every single question. You'll leave the chamber under 94A for 1 hour. Applies to everyone, whether you've been here for your first term or many terms. Simply just interjecting all the time is not acceptable. We're not having it today. The Minister will continue.
Thank you, sir. And, Mr Speaker, the honourable member asked me about election commitments we made in 2022 and energy prices over that term in this. And that's fair, Mr Speaker, and that was traversed well in the House in the last term as well. And I pointed out that at the last election, the Leader of the Opposition called for a referendum on energy prices at the last election, and the Australian people spoke very clearly. But as you know, Mr Speaker, I'm always looking for a bipartisan note to strike up the dispatch box. I'm always looking for a point of agreement. Partisanship does not come naturally to me, Mr Speaker. So I'm pleased to be able to report that I am able to agree with the Shadow Minister for Energy. I'm able to approvingly quote him because after question time yesterday, the Shadow Minister for Energy went on Sky News and said, what we've said is we went to the last election with an energy policy. The Australian people have said they supported the approach that was made by the Albanese Labor governments, the policies they took to the last election, Mr Speaker. I couldn't have said it better myself, sir. Mr Speaker, the member for Wannon has made a fair point. We made commitments in the 2022 election. We sought to implement those. The Australian people cast judgment about that on May the 3rd. We will continue with the instruction the Australian people gave us, that is, to continue with the work of delivering the cheapest, most reliable and cleanest form of energy, which is renewables. They are triggered every time we mention renewable energy. I understand that. They are prejudiced against renewable energy, but the Australian people are showing with the decisions they are making each day in their take-up of the Albanese Labor government's cheaper home batteries policy and in the instruction they are giving the Australian government that they want us to keep on with that job.
Call to the honourable member for Urquhart.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Employment and Workplace Relations. What action is the Albanese Labor government taking to protect penalty rates and overtime rates for workers? And why is this an urgent priority for the government?
Call to the Minister for Employment and the Minister for Workplace Relations.
Thank you, Speaker. And I'd like to thank the member for Urquhart for his question and, of course, for the work he did in protecting workers' rights before he came to this place, but also the work he continues to do right here in this parliament. The Albanese government has delivered landmark workplace relations reforms with a clear goal to get wages moving again. We fought hard to deliver them because working Australians deserve decent pay and secure jobs. And our laws are working to deliver real wage increases. We are now seeing the strongest rate of annual wages growth in 5 years. Our work to protect the pay packets of Australians is continuing, and we are delivering on our clear election commitment to protect penalty and overtime rates in modern awards. Now, I'm pleased to advise the House that the legislation passed this House earlier today to safeguard fundamental entitlements of around 2.6 modern award-reliant workers, because these workers deserve laws that ensure their pay does not go backwards. Penalty rates and overtimes are a long-standing feature and a vital part of the modern award safety net, which does support our lowest-paid workers. Workers who rely on penalty rates are more likely to be women, work part-time, be under the age of 35 and be employed on a casual basis. People like Erin, who works in a grocery store in South Australia, has said, earning penalty rates makes it worthwhile while being away from family and not taking a day to be able to rest and recover. It's extra money earned for choosing to work rather than enjoy a day off. And for Cooper on the Gold Coast, he said penalty rates aren't a bonus. They're an essential part of a modern worker's wage. That income comes at a personal cost, time lost with friends, missed milestones with families and social life sacrificed. The action we have taken is clear and decisive. It is about protecting workers like Erin and Cooper's penalty rates and overtime rates. Now, I've been asked, Speaker, why this legislation is urgent. Well, there are currently cases on foot where employers in retail, clerical and banking sectors are proposing to trade away penalty rates, leaving some of our lowest-paid workers worse off. That is why our clear commitment is to protect penalty rates and overtime rates, and it is an urgent priority. The passage of our legislation through the House today clearly demonstrates our government is getting on with the job, delivering on our election commitments to protect penalty and overtime rates.
Call to the member for Macpherson.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, my question is to the Minister for Climate Change and Energy, and I refer to his previous answer about wholesale prices. Is the Minister aware of wholesale price reporting released today that showed wholesale prices compared to the same quarter last year rose by 25% in Queensland and 21% in Victoria? Did the Minister ignore these figures in his previous answer?
Order. Order. Members on my left. We'll hear from the Minister for Climate Change and Energy.
Well, thanks, Mr Speaker. Of course, there are multiple reports out today from our energy regulators, including the one the member refers to. But the figures I'm referring to were comparing energy prices today compared to election day, which is what I was asked. I apologise for using the frame that was put to me by the Leader of the Opposition. That was what I was asked to compare, and that's what I did. Now, there are a number of reports out today.
Order.
And if the honourable member wants to ask me about reports, I'm happy to refer to them, like the Australian Energy Market Commission, which has said residential energy prices across the national electricity market could be around 13% lower in 10 years' time if renewable energy and infrastructure development proceeds as expected. Mr Speaker, or the Australian Energy Market Operator, who says the Integrated System Plan confirms that renewable energy connected with transmission and distribution, firm with storage and backed up by gas power generation is the lowest cost way to supply electricity to homes and businesses as Australia transitions to the net zero economy. And you know what is interesting about renewable energy, backed by gas peaking, backed by storage? That's exactly the plan of the Albanese government. That's exactly the plan that we are implementing, a plan recommended and designed by Australian experts for Australian conditions, and that's exactly what we are going about delivering. The honourable member wants to know about expert reports. I'm happy to keep going. The CSIRO has found that renewables, including costs associated with additional storage and transmission, remain the lowest cost, lowest build technology. Again, I should have issued a trigger warning. I was going to mention the CSIRO and science, because I don't like the CSIRO and science. It offends their sensibilities when the CSIRO, one of the world's premier scientific organisations, points out that renewable energy backed by firming and storage is the cheapest form of energy. The cheapest form of energy. That's about prices, I say to the Leader of the Opposition. So those opposite don't like renewable energy, they don't like science and they don't like the CSIRO. I can't help that. What I can help is government policies to help those Australians who need it when it comes to their energy bills, and that's what this government will keep delivering.
Call to the member for Petrie.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Housing, Homelessness and Cities. How is the Albanese Labor government delivering on its commitment to make it easier to buy and better to rent? What stands in the way of delivering more homes?
Call to the Minister for Housing, the Minister for Homelessness and the Minister for Cities.
Speaker, I thank the member for Petrie for her question, and I want to acknowledge the wonderful and uplifting first speech she gave to this chamber on Monday. Yeah. Speaker, she's a real up-and-comer. Landed perfectly. Speaker, one of the consistent themes of our Labor first speeches has been the experience of hardship that a lot of our new MPs have brought to this chamber. And Speaker, for so many of our incoming class of 2025, nothing has been handed to them. It takes so much courage and grit to see those challenges through and get to a point where you're standing in this place and representing your community. And again, Speaker, housing has been so central to so many of the stories that we've heard, and that pride in being a part of a government that stepped up on housing. Now, Speaker, in our first term, our government took the Commonwealth from being a negligent bystander on housing to building the boldest and most ambitious housing agenda that a Commonwealth government has had since the Second World War. We're investing $43 billion, Speaker, in three things. We're building more homes, we're helping renters get a better deal, and we're getting more Australians into home ownership. And, Speaker, this is having real impact on the lives of the people we represent. In the last term, Speaker, more than 175,000 Australians got into their first home with the backing of our government. More than 1 million Australian households benefited from a 45% increase in Commonwealth rent assistance, and 500,000 homes were built in our country. And, Speaker, home building is turning a real corner. I can report to the House that just a few hours ago the ABS released data that shows building approvals are up 27.4% on the previous year. Now, Speaker, this term we're going to be doing more. We're doing more to help first home buyers and we're doing more to build more homes. And, Speaker, I want to work with colleagues right across the parliament in order to deliver those outcomes for Australians. Indeed, I met with the crossbench yesterday. We had a really good briefing about some of the challenges that are facing us in construction. And it seems to me that we've got a whole parliament of people who want to work together on this national issue, except for those opposite. Now, Speaker, the first move that the Coalition have made this term on housing, you're not going to believe it, is to try to block the construction of 80,000 desperately needed new homes. Speaker, this is not what the Australian people voted for in May. And, Mr Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition said that she wanted to do things differently, but Tom Forrest from the Urban Task Force Australia said the move that's been made here is, quote, a throwback to the failed housing policies of the Dutton leadership. Now, Speaker, the opposition has a really clear choice here. They can continue to be housing hypocrites, complaining about a crisis that they were instrumental in creating and then voting against measures to try to address it, or they can do what the Australian people so clearly are asking of this parliament, and that is for us to work together to address this critical challenge in the lives of the people we represent.
I call the honourable member for Indi.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Aged Care. The government's delay to the new aged care system leaves nearly 90,000 people waiting for a home care package, nearly 90,000 families under pressure. Despite this, the government ignored the call to fund 20,000 packages to bridge the gap to the new system in November. What are you doing to support these people in the meantime?
Call to the Minister for Aged Care and the Minister for Seniors.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I thank the member for the question and I acknowledge her genuine interest in ensuring that every older Australian can access safe, dignified and high-quality aged care. In the last term of Parliament, my predecessor, the Minister for Communications, passed the new Aged Care Act with support from the opposition and constructive contributions from the crossbench. And the Parliament was able to come together on this work because care for older people should be above politics. These once-in-a-generation reforms will deliver world-class aged care services to the older Australians who worked hard to build our country and to whom we owe the very best care. Now, alongside these reforms comes support at home, to which the member's question refers, which will simplify current in-home care arrangements and deliver a system that will help older people to stay at home for longer. As our population ages, demand for home care packages has grown very, very fast. It's now operating at record levels. We have more than 300,000 Australians accessing home care packages, as compared with just about 150,000 people accessing them 5 years ago. Last financial year, the federal government spent over $8 billion on the home care packages program, as compared with just $1 billion 10 years ago. Mr Speaker, the important point here is that we are delivering more care to more people than ever before, but we are going to do it better. Now, last month, Minister Butler and I announced, after extensive consultation with older people, with providers, with workers, that we would briefly defer the Act through to the 1st of November, and that includes the introduction of the Support at Home program. And this will make sure that all operational, digital and legislative pieces are in place so that the new system is a genuine success. When Support at Home comes into effect on the 1st of November, we will roll out an additional 80,000 packages in the first 12 months.
Order. The Minister will pause. The member for Indi on a point of order.
Speaker, relevance. I asked the Minister what he was going to do, or what the government was going to do to support the people in the meantime. It's 3 months until the 1st of November.
The Leader of the Opposition will cease interjecting. The Minister was asked a question about government policies and specific around that. He does have another minute to go, but I can't direct him to answer the way you'd liked. He is being directly relevant. Here's the call.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. As I said, from the 1st of November, we will roll out an additional 80,000 packages in the first 12 months. Until then, over the course of the period between now and November, my #1 priority is ensuring that older people continue to receive the care and services that they need, and until November we'll continue to assign packages each and every week in accordance with the National Priority System. And I can assure the House that older people who are assessed as being high priority will continue to receive their packages within a month. Mr Speaker, our government continues to deliver more care for more Australians, and this brief deferral will give aged care providers more time to prepare their clients, support their workers and get their systems ready for these historic changes.
Before I call the member for Tangney, I'm pleased to invite the House that we also have the Mayor of Hinchinbrook, Councillor Raymond Keogh. I'm also advised that the member for Herbert's mum is in the gallery too. Welcome to you all. I'll give you the call to the member for Tangney.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Climate Change and Energy. How is acting on climate change in the national interest as well as the interest of Australian households? What policy proposal would take Australia backwards, especially in Western Australia? Thank you.
Give a call to the Minister for Climate Change and Energy.
Well, I thank my honourable friend for the question, Mr Speaker, and I am glad that he's asked me about policies in the best interest of households and the country and his great state of Western Australia. And I can again confirm that over the last 24 hours, another 1,000 Australian households have taken up the Albanese Labor government's cheaper home batteries policy, bringing the total to 18,336. But I'm sorry to tell the member for Tangney that his electorate in Western Australia is the second highest take-up in Western Australia of the cheaper home batteries policy, which isn't bad,
but it's not as good as the member for Canning, who has the highest take-up of the batteries policy in all of Western Australia. The good households of Canning are embracing net zero and embracing cheaper home batteries and renewable energy at a rapid pace. And that comes as little surprise, because the people of Canning know that if you take up a battery together with solar under the Albanese government's cheaper home batteries policy, you can save $2,300 each and every year, a permanent bill reduction, which is eerily similar to the benefits for all Australians of net zero. We know economic modelling shows that net zero will make every single Australian household $2,000 better off, Mr Speaker. The member for New England is whispering an interjection to me, which I'm not sure is entirely parliamentary, but he might want to be more complimentary to the Morrison-Joyce government, because the modelling I just quoted was from the Morrison-Joyce government's plan to deliver net zero the Australian way, which showed Australians would be $2,000 better off by net zero. It showed that Western Australia was estimated to see 34,000 new jobs in the mining and heavy industry by 2050 under a net zero plan. So net zero is good for Australia and good for Western Australia. Now, the honourable member for Tangney asked me what policies might take Western Australia backwards. And any attempt to unwind net zero would take Western Australia backwards. And we've seen, I'm unfortunately obliged to tell the House, we've seen some attempts to do that. The West Australian Liberal Party State Council voted against net zero. The Leader of the Opposition in Western Australia came out and disassociated himself from that, which earned him an attack from the member for Canning. The member for Canning will undermine any Leader of the Opposition that he can find, Mr Speaker. He's taking a practice run in Perth for what he intends to do in Canberra sometime in the next 12 months, as we all know. He loves undermining leaders of the opposition with his agenda. His agenda is anti-net zero, but his constituents have a different view. His constituents are taking up net zero and taking up cheaper renewable energy. I know the member for Canning doesn't like that, but then again, the member for Canning doesn't like the current leadership arrangements of the opposition either, that will continue to deliver for the Australian people.
Call to the Deputy Leader of the Opposition.
Thanks very much, Mr Speaker. My question goes to the Treasurer. Former Labor Prime Minister Paul Keating has reportedly described Labor's unfair super tax as, quote, unconscionable. Mr Keating said young people entering the workforce today will see their super balances rise to hit a higher threshold in the future, the same threshold at which Labor's unfair super tax kicks in. Treasurer, are these views of Mr Keating wrong?
I've got some problems with that question, but yeah, we're just going to make sure that it's within standing orders regarding the media comments and the reports, but it wasn't by. Anyway, the Treasurer is happy to take the question.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I was beginning to wonder where the Shadow Treasurer had got to, so I welcome his question today about these changes.
Order.
His question has a number of important elements. First of all, I want to remind the House that when it comes to the changes that we are proposing to superannuation, this side of the House is cutting taxes for 100% of the 14 million Australian workers in the income tax system. That side of the House wants to go to the wall for 0.5% of people who already have more than $3 million in superannuation. So there is a difference here, Mr Speaker, between this side of the House and that side of the House. They wanted to jack up taxes on every single Australian taxpaying worker, but they will go to the wall for 0.5% of people, some of whom have hundreds of millions of dollars already in superannuation. And what that tells us, Mr Speaker, is that they haven't listened, they haven't learned and they haven't changed. They weren't listening to what the Australian people told them on the 3rd of May. Now, when it comes to Paul Keating, first of all, as the Minister for Energy reminds us, you should hear what Paul Keating thinks about you lot. That's the first point. That's the first point. The second point is I think it's a matter of public record that I value my relationship with Paul Keating. He's someone I've known for a long time. He's someone that I continue to admire. Now, it's possible to admire Paul Keating and to respect Paul Keating and to occasionally have a different view to Paul Keating, and that's what's happened on this occasion. and I've said that publicly on a number of occasions. I mean no disrespect to Paul when I say it. We speak about this matter from time to time. We speak about a whole range of matters from time to time, and I value the engagement. And the reason this is so important, and the reason why this rare question from the Shadow Treasurer is so unfortunate, is because the reason that Paul put out a statement talking about the balance that people have in their superannuation is because he was rightly celebrating the fact that this side of the House is delivering 12% superannuation guarantee. And the reason that's so important, Mr Speaker, is because at every single turn those opposite have tried to diminish and undermine superannuation. Superannuation is one of the great public policy triumphs of this country, and we are very proud of it, Mr Speaker. It took 3 Labor governments to get superannuation from 9 to 12. Paul Keating's government who obviously played a decisive role. I pay tribute to former Treasurer Swan and former Assistant Treasurer Bowen for legislating the increase in the superannuation guarantee, and this government oversaw 12% superannuation guarantee, and that was what Paul was talking about when he put that statement out, Mr Speaker. I won't be taking lectures on superannuation from those opposite. They hate superannuation from John Howard on. We believe in superannuation, and that includes making sure that the concessions are sustainable.
Give a call to the member for Deakin.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Education. What is the Albanese Labor government doing to strengthen safety in early education and care?
A call to the Minister for Education.
Thanks very much, Mr Speaker, and can I thank the member for Deakin for his question. Today, Mr Speaker, the Parliament has passed another important piece of legislation. Today we've passed laws to cut funding to childcare centres that aren't up to scratch, that aren't meeting the quality and the safety standards that our parents expect and that our children deserve. As I said last week when I introduced this bill to the Parliament, this is perhaps the biggest weapon that we have to wield here, because taxpayers are the biggest funders of childcare centres. We do that through the childcare subsidy, something like $16 billion every year. Childcare centres can't operate without it. It covers about 70% of the cost of running a childcare centre. But not just that, out-of-school hours care centres as well. This legislation gives us the power to cut that funding off to centres that aren't meeting those quality and safety standards that we set for them. To be clear, the purpose of this legislation isn't to shut centres down, but to raise their standards up. But it's also not an idle threat, and I've directed my department to be ready to act swiftly when the legislation receives royal assent. I want to thank the opposition leader, and I want to thank the Shadow Minister John O'Doniam and the Shadow Assistant Minister Zoe McKenzie for the work that we have done together here. I mean it. It's the way it should work. But this isn't the only thing that we need to do. To be honest, this is the start, not the end. To be brutally honest, this work will never end. And the sickening news that we've heard from the Australian Federal Police in the last few hours is a reminder of why this is so important. There is a lot of work that we need to do together to rebuild trust and confidence in a system that parents need to have confidence in. Work we have to do, work the states and territories have to do, and work that we all have to do together. The Attorney-General spoke in this place on Monday about the hodgepodge of different working with children check systems in different states and territories, and fixing that is on the top of the agenda when Attorneys-General meet in a few weeks' time. We also need to be able to track workers who move from centre to centre and in some cases from state to state, and that's what a National Educator Register is all about. That's something that education ministers have already agreed that we need and that our departments are working on right now. We also need mandatory child safety training to make sure that childcare workers have the skills they need to help to identify somebody in a centre who might be up to no good. There are hundreds of thousands of incredible people who care for our children, who educate our children, and they're just as angry and distressed as everybody here at the moment. They feel tarnished, they feel tarred, some have been spat on in the street. The truth is they're the best asset that we've got here in this fight to keep our children safe. We need them and we need to support them. And education ministers will focus on this and much more when we meet in the next few weeks.
On indulgence to support the minister's remarks, I call the leader.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. And briefly on indulgence, can I thank the minister for working so constructively with Senator Duniam in the other place, the member for Flinders in this place, myself in the swift passage of this legislation. And we were happy to work constructively with the government. But I say this to the government. The next part is very difficult. Sitting down with the states and territories, as we have all done in ministerial positions in the past, can just descend into a talk fest and ministers depart to their states and nothing happens. We cannot afford to have that this time. We still need a national worker register, consistent checks, personal devices banned in centres. We have to have the action that we have not seen from the states. And we, as the opposition, will not take a backward step in holding the government to account to do just that.
A call to the member for Kennedy.
Prime Minister, our computers advise that after Newcastle and Gladstone, Mount Isa is Australia's biggest industrial centre. Most of Mount Isa is to vanish. Can the Prime Minister activate government to detour this pending disaster and reassure us that essential service, the copper smelter, be owned by an entity partly, inter alia, answerable to the Australian people? Further, that a gas reserve resource policy be urgently initiated to forestall the closure of this and the $1,000 million a year Mount Isa fertiliser plant.
Call to the Prime Minister.
I thank the member for Kennedy for his question. The member for Kennedy is a fierce advocate for his community, his electorate and for North Queensland. And I do want to acknowledge firstly the workers affected by Glencore's decision to close the Mount Isa copper mine. The member for Kennedy is right for calling out Glencore on the future of Mount Isa. Workers are losing their jobs and the broad and proud northwest Queensland community is hurting. I also want to acknowledge the Keep Our Copper delegation who are here in the gallery. You are fighting hard for your industry and for your region, different levels of government as well as the private sector. Mount Isa, which I visited with the member for Kennedy on at least 5 occasions, I think now, is too important to Queensland and for the nation, for there to not be Commonwealth involvement. And that's why the Industry Minister, Senator Ayres, has been speaking with the Mount Isa community, Glencore and the Queensland Government almost daily to protect the national interest and protect the workers and families of Mount Isa. Let's be clear about Glencore, though. It is a highly profitable company. Just this year, they paid $2.2 billion in dividends to their shareholders. Australia's been pretty good to Glencore. It's about time that Glencore recognise it needs to be good back to Australia. They should back the town that has backed them and has helped build the wealth of their shareholders. Now, our plan for a future made in Australia is about keeping smelting and processing capability here in Australia and the good blue-collar and engineering jobs that go along with them. We've backed this ambition with transformative industry policy, the National Reconstruction Fund, the production tax credits, the investing the Green Iron Investment Fund and $2 billion for Australia's aluminium smelters to transition to clean energy. And we're getting on with the job, supporting North Queensland and Australian industry. The critical minerals facility within Export Finance Australia will be expanded by another $1 billion, taking it to $5 billion, to finance critical minerals projects. Now, this facility is making a difference for Queensland. It's provided $160 million for the Alpha High Purity Alumina project and has delivered more than $30 million to Queensland through the Critical Minerals Development Program. This is not a government-only solution. Companies that own Australian smelters must step up and invest in transforming their facilities to meet future opportunities. I assure the member that I'll continue to work constructively with him, as I always have, and that the Industry Minister, I know, is very engaged in this issue, along with a whole-of-government response, because we understand how critical this industry is for his electorate, but also for the nation.
Before I call them in for Bass, I'm also pleased to advise in the Southern Gallery we've got students from the Victory Lutheran College from Wodonga in the electorate of Indi. Give the call to the honourable member for Bass.
Thank you. My question is to the Minister for Communications. How are the world-leading online safety measures implemented by the Albanese Labor government putting Australian families before online platforms?
Great. Call to the Minister for Communications and the Minister for Sport.
I thank the member for Bass for her question and for her beautiful first speech in this place. The Albanese government's social media delay is genuinely world-leading. It is the first of its kind to pass anywhere in the world. Australia should be immensely proud that as a country we have decided to prioritise the online safety of children and put families before platforms. This is Australian commitment at its best, because if it was easy, other countries would have done it already. A continent considered disconnected from the world, now showing the world that we can be safely connected. Social media connects us, it binds us, it fosters connection and social cohesion. But it is also used to abuse, control and harass. We know that social media platforms can target children with chilling control. Now, Australians are taking some of that control back. Here is what Australian parents had to say after the social media minimum age rules were tabled in the House yesterday. Alexandra said, "I love these laws because it changes the conversations I have with my 7- and 9-year-olds and hopefully makes me less of the villain. It's the law. It makes it a little easier." Jackie said, "Parents cannot police these things entirely on their own, so having policies that support good practice is a relief." Rebecca said, "This feels like a step in common sense as a basic principle. I don't know if I'm the only one, but in the last decade it's felt like we are all spiralling a little, so this is refreshing." Rebecca, you are not alone. We are all in this fight together, and the Albanese government has your back. There is no perfect solution when it comes to keeping young Australians safe online, but the social media minimum age will make a meaningful difference. We are giving children 3 more years to build real-world connections and to build online resilience. There is a place for social media, but there is not a place for predatory algorithms that target young Australians.
Give the call to the member for Nichols.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Climate Change and Energy. According to today's data from the Australian Energy Regulator, did wholesale electricity prices rise or did they fall?
Give the call to the Minister for Climate Change and Energy.
Well, thanks, Mr Speaker. The quarterly wholesale prices rose. Yes, they did. That's what the report says. Thanks for noticing, Mr Speaker. But
Order.
The fact remains that now the honourable member has very clearly asked me about wholesale energy prices, and yes, over the quarter they rose. Compared to the election, though, they are substantially lower at the time of the election. So in New South Wales, wholesale prices were $320.48. The current figures are $127.72, Mr Speaker. In Queensland, they were $347.28. They are now $107.39. Now, I won't go through state by state. On average, across the country, they are currently $126.62. When those opposite handed over on the 22nd of May, they were $286.18, Mr Speaker. Now, this compares to the promise made by the then Minister for Energy in 2019, the 2019 election. He promised wholesale prices would be $70 a megawatt hour within 3 years, and they ended up at $286 a megawatt hour. So, missed by that much, as the Prime Minister likes to say, Mr Speaker. Now, if the honourable member wants to ask me about wholesale prices, I'm more than happy to have the conversation about wholesale prices, because it is not a pretty story for those opposite. They presided over 9 years of denial and delay and dysfunction, and that saw Australian households pay the price, because they left the energy grid
fundamentally unprepared for shocks. They saw 4 gigawatts of dispatchable power leave the grid and only replaced it with 1 gigawatt. When you see a net 3 gigawatts leave the grid, that sees prices go up and reliability come down. And that's the key reason why wholesale prices rose so much on their watch, and the fact that we have turned that around and just in the last financial year seeing 4.4 gigawatts added to the grid, connected already, operating today. That's one of the key reasons wholesale prices have come down so much since May 2022. So I very fundamentally thank the honourable member for asking me about wholesale prices, and I invite him to have another go.
Call to the honourable member for Dixon.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister. How has the Albanese Labor government been pursuing its agenda this fortnight? And how does this compare to other approaches in Parliament?
Give a call to the Prime Minister.
I thank the member for Dixon for her question, and of course a highlight of the first fortnight was the first speeches by all of the new members in this chamber, particularly, if I can single out one, it is the member for Dixon, who was quite extraordinary, I think, in outlining her life story and what's brought her to this place and why she will be an outstanding contributor as the member for Dixon. And our focus this fortnight has been very much on delivering to improve the living standards of the people that we represent, strengthening Medicare through cheaper medicines, protecting penalty rates, which passed the House today, cutting student debt, which passed the Senate today. This week we've also known that inflation has come down to 2.1% on an annual basis. The same figure, 2.1%, was the March 2022 last quarter in which the coalition were in government. 2.1% in just one quarter compared with 2.1% across an entire year, making a difference, getting inflation down at the same time as we've got wages up and we've kept unemployment low. That is the Labor way, that's the Australian way. And I'm asked about the alternative agendas that have been pursued in this parliament. Well, the opposition have certainly been pursuing their own agenda, or should I say agendas, because there's more than one over there, fighting publicly over whether climate change is real and over whether they support net zero. I mean, at one point this week, I have the TV on in the background there, and I said last week that the Nats had taken up occupation of the Sky News studio, but it was particularly good this week because they had two shows running on Sky News at the same time. There was the Nationals leader in the studio with Laura Jays, but in the corner, in the little box there, there was all the Nat renegades out the front, along with one or two Liberals in the corner. A split screen showing a split party. A split screen.
Order. The Attorney-General will cease objecting. The Leader of the Nationals, the manager on a point of order.
Personal relevance. The question was tied. It was about the agenda inside the parliament. It wasn't about Sky News or if the Prime Minister's been watching television.
The question was asked about the government's agenda and the government's comparing that to other, and he is obviously answering that part of the question.
Every time the new manager for opposition business gets up, you feel a little nostalgia for Paul Fletcher. Joni Mitchell was right. You don't know what you've got till it's gone.
Order.
You've got to bring back the hand signals.
The teapot.
Order.
Then this week they tried to abolish build-to-rent schemes. They opposed the student debt relief during the campaign, but they couldn't even vote on it over there. Mr. Speaker, we have a clear agenda of helping Australians. They have an agenda of fighting amongst themselves. And I ask that further questions be placed on the notice paper.